My name is Jeff Marquis, and I am the Director of TSAMM Services. And on the call here as well from Data Paradigm is Eduardo Rodriguez. He is the Director of TSAMM Relations. He is primarily the person that you would contact should you have questions or concerns or have any issues with the system. But you're going to contact him at tsammsupport@dataparadigm.com. And this is going to be an opportunity here for you to be able to contact him in case you have any questions. Here, we're going to be focusing today on what it means for what we would say is the standard user to be able to process through the system, to process through the applications, to be able to fully understand what's going to happen from the moment at which someone begins an application to the point in which it is distributed. And so you want to go ahead and reference back to that webinar on Tuesday. If you missed that, I think some of you on this call were actually on that webinar on Tuesday. And so it's good to see and hear you guys again. Just a quick reminder for those of you that are just now joining, be sure to use the question section. If you have any questions that come up along the way, just additional clarifications, as well as we will pause periodically and be able to answer questions as well. And we will utilize the hand raising feature of the webinar to be able to, so that we can unmute you and call on you. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available to you in just a few days after we are completed for you to go back and reference, for you to go back and potentially share with someone from your command or your division that wasn't able to be a part of this webinar today. But we're going to go ahead and jump straight in and share with you some new things. But there's one aspect that I want to highlight, which is technically a little bit of, I guess you might say, an administrative component, but your standard users are going to experience this. And this happens every year all throughout the TSAMM world, because in TSAMM's Angel Tree, you can be one of two users. You can be what we would say is a Angel Tree user, right? A TSAMM user. Now, in order to be a TSAMM user, you have to have a TSAMM user account. Now, this is something that if you've never utilized the system, you don't have an account, so you can't simply go in there. Just because you have the USC.Salvation Army email address does not mean that you are a TSAMM user. Now, you can do one of two things. You can go through the process of being added as a TSAMM user, and you'll want to refer to your divisional headquarters to understand that specific process to be added, or you'll be added as a local user. And so a local user is for any Salvation Army employee who, even if they have a USC email address, to be able to access the system, or anyone external is able to access the system through as a local user. But this is where we get a bit disconnected. And that is, if you are a local user, in your email you received, as well as in this campaign, you're going to go to this tsamm.org/loginlocal. You need to go to this website to log in rather than just the standard tsamm.org. If you go to tsamm.org and enter in your information as a local user, it's going to go wrong. There's going to be some frustrations as if your password's wrong. But make sure you go to this location. And then also, if you are a TSAMM user, but they entered you as a local user, you will be able to access TSAMM to get to Meeting Manager, but you would not see your Angel Tree module, and that's because you were entered as a local user, and so as such, you need to go to this login local. Go ahead and reach out to Eduardo if you need any additional information, and so we'll be able to answer that through. Sonia just asked, will login and password information be given to access TSAMM? You generate this. So as anyone who is your Angel Tree administrator will come into this section under admin configurations, and they will add you. They will add the local user. They'll walk you through the email address and all the additional information to be able to give you access. And so that, I just want to highlight that user information, because that's going to be a potential pain point for you if you do enter your information in the wrong spot. Now what I want to do is I want to jump over to our public Angel Tree site. Now this is something that's going to look similar, but it's going to, we have made an alteration here as part of how you access the system that's going to be different than you would have experienced in years past. The way it worked in years past is you would come to this page and you would simply be able to enter in a zip code and begin an application. What we've added this year, and this is a new feature, but it also mirrors our newest module, SA Help, to be able to give someone what's called a one-time password. So now when someone goes to saangeltree.org, they're going to be prompted with a few questions. The first of which is, have you started an application? So I'll click no. Do you have an invitation code? No. At this point, I'm going to enter in my zip code. Now, when I enter in my zip code, the same thing happens if I put in a zip code that's not being serviced, I'll get that message. But if I do put in a zip code that's being serviced, I'm going to be prompted to immediately enter my email address. And so I'll just put jeff@gmail.com. And then when I put in my email address, it's going to send an email to my my email address with a 6-character password or a 6-character verification code that you're going to enter in. At this point, you'll gain access to the system and process through the application as normal. Now, this is going to help do a few things, one of which is often, even though individuals who get past step 1, they still might go back and just start a new application. And what that ends up doing is that ends up providing a significant number of duplicates. We've seen situations in which the same application was started 6, 7, 8, 9 times, which creates some pain points for you. Now, because there can only be one app, each application needs to have a unique email address. They will be able to go in and access to resume their application, as well as what we'll get to a little bit later, be able to go in and get updates on where their application is, as well as see the distribution appointment that they've seen. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the application before we see the application as a whole. And so if I come into this applicant record, I'm going to go down and I'm going to show an application called Constance Brown. Now, this is going to be a familiar site that you see, and this is the WellSky matching process. Now, we have been working with WellSky to speed up this process, and we are 99% there. In fact, I just right before this call got the official update that they have streamlined the second half, because without getting too technical, what we have here is 2 interactions. When you first come onto an application that has no service point client ID match, it is going to keep popping up in your face until you do something about that. Now, I can back out, and the match is going to remain unconfirmed. But then the next time I come into this application, it's going to pop it up again and try to get me to match this in community services. So as usual, you first off has the same option, and that's going to show you potential matches. So you can see here it's the same first name, last name, date of birth. Now this, when you hit the select, this is when the delay was happening, and it was on the way that the WellSky database was structured. It was taking a little bit longer than you desired, as you can see here, as it takes time to look in and to pull back that family-specific information. We saw sometimes that got significantly high. Even when it was working well, it could still get to 6, 7, 8 seconds, which is far less than ideal. Now, and we're not going to get into all the technical things, but we have significantly sped it up to where it is returning results in less than 1 second. I apologize, I didn't get this in place here, but the interface itself is identical to be able to go through, and you'll go through and be able to put in the names, see the dates, and then you will either confirm the match that yes, this is indeed that person, or if you say, oh, that's not it, you'll click back. But one new component this year is a search function, because sometimes people go into AngelTree and perhaps you know them, you know that they've come back multiple times to your facility, to your system, but perhaps for one reason or another, they've entered in a different first name. The system has to look for a match. And so if they've chose to utilize their middle name as a first name, it will give you that option. Scarlett, that is an excellent question. She noticed that there is a difference in the date of birth. The system does allow for a minor amount of deviation. So I think the date of birth is going to return dates for if it overlaps. I believe it's on 2 days on either side. But if the first name is Constance and they put in the first name as Willa, my mom's name is Constance, and so her middle name is Willa. If they put her middle name Willa, it's not going to return any results. But now you have the ability to search. And so when I search, I can search by one of two things, one of which is the first name, last name, date of birth. And that is like, I know you're in here. Let's go ahead and make sure you spelled it the right way, make sure you did something wrong. Or I can just enter in a client ID. Now, if I enter in a client ID, I can type in any 7-digit code just for the purposes of this confirmation, and it's going to search and enter in, oh, okay, this is Zathan Spears. And so at which point I can say this is indeed that person, or I can back out. If I want to match them as a whole, I'm going to cancel that, and if I need to search again, I can search here to go back, or I can go back and then it will reset this marking. If I select it and confirm the match, the number will be appeared, and I can show you that here. Once it searches again, this is going to be extremely fast compared to what you're used to from last year, and we're looking forward to that. And so, sorry, I got a request to go a little bit slower. I'll do my best to try and get through everything. And so we go through and we enter in the head of household. Remember, this video is going to be able to be reviewed again after the fact, but I will do my best to speak slower. This is my 4th webinar this week, and so I've been talking a good bit, and I've got my phrasing down. So as we go through here, I'm going to do this. So I've selected who my person is going to be, at which point if I said, yes, indeed, I now ignore the fact right now the other household members are the same. I just want to confirm this match. Now, when I confirm this match, this service point client ID has been updated. If I come in after the fact and I need to update this, let's say for whatever reason, upon further review of your data, you match this person incorrectly, and you found this out. Because what happens is when it's pulling back results, it won't let you apply the same service point client ID to multiple users. If you do need to edit it, simply click the edit pencil, and it'll run this system again. If it comes back with no results, I can simply here create as a new client, and now it's going to say new, and if you hover over here, it'll actually give you a little bit of a help text that when an export's performed at the end of the season, this application is going to be treated as a new client. Now, a couple other things on this page that you're going to go through. And I'm going to jump over to a different applicant record as we walk through here. I'm going to jump over here to Leva Frank. You'll see that Leva's already been matched. She's been given a new application. And let's say I know that maybe I didn't know it, but I know that Leva's been here before. I can just go ahead and run this match again and go, oh, see, they're right there, and I can match them. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to proceed. Now, when an application comes in, you're going to go through and process these various components. You have your applicant information, which is going to be essentially the head of household. You have any household members who are not qualified angels. And I want to pause here for a second to talk about what it means to be a non-qualified angel. And so as it comes through, we are going to go through and as you can see, the system in their campaigns has set the parameters beyond, based on how old you have to be an angel. Now, as you go through the application, it does have a help text at the top to help them understand. But here, someone who is not a qualified angel is simply saying that you are not within the age parameters of what that is. Eric, I see your question there. Just as a heads up, the household ID is captured and utilized, it's just not displayed. So that household ID is there for the purposes of the export. As it goes through, and so you have these qualified angels, and it goes, you're able to process through. You have your angels themselves with the gifts that they've asked for, as well as their angel statuses, their application pickup, their disclaimer and consent, just in terms of when they signed their disclaimer and consent, distribution confirmation, and this will happen as a separate component, required documents, and then your history and comments. Now, when I want to go through and apply this, when we stick it in here, when you go through to review, you're going to open up each one of these categories and potentially review the information. Now, as someone who's processing the application, one of the things I'm sure you're going to look at beyond just the basic information for the individual is scheduling an applicant pickup. Now, for right now, I'm going to remove this application pickup. So when but in order to submit an application question, sorry, I'll try to do my best not to pause as I see questions just to respond quickly. Not everyone's questions are directly to us, and then we will highlight them after the fact, Beverly. The question interface in GoToWebinar is not a public forum to where you'll be able to see all the pending questions. Some of the questions are direct to someone's specific situation. Now, to schedule an applicant pickup, I'll come into this category. You'll see that no appointment's been scheduled, and I'll click this edit pencil to the right. As I open this edit pencil, I'm going to go through and choose both what is my distribution site. Now, in the campaign configurations, the administrator would have assigned a distribution site to a given intake site. And so in this situation, there are two distribution sites. So is this going to be out the Bay City core, or is this going to be distributed from the Bay City warehouse? At which point I can come in here, and once I select the Bay City core, because that's where they're going to be distributed, you can see what's available. And it will color code as you go further to be able to show which slots are more empty. It is going to be up to you and your business rules to determine how you fill this, if maybe you're directed to fill from the earliest on to leave space, but the system is going to allow you to schedule those as needed. And so I'll simply click a distribution point, I'll click schedule, and now it's going to say the appointment's been scheduled for these two individuals, Jimmy and Susan, and now that information is here under the schedule applicant pickup. If one thing that's new to the 2023 season is the easy way to remove an appointment. If someone has been scheduled an appointment, maybe they got their email confirmation that that everything has been scheduled, but they said, oh, I can't make it on the 2nd. Can I come on the 3rd? Can I come out? I can't come on Monday. Can I come on Tuesday? If that is something that you're willing to accommodate, you'll go ahead and remove that appointment and apply a new appointment to them. Another new component this year is under required documents. Now, right now, as you go through, because applications have the tendency to be returned to the applicant if new information is needed, they can come through and be resubmitted. But what this is allowing you to do is to be able to flag an item as being reviewed. So if I want to view it, I can just click view. Now, granted, this is going to be just a placeholder of a food pantry. Ignore it's not a picture of a library card, but if I reviewed it and it does indeed meet the standards for that required documents, I will go ahead and flag that as confirmed. And that's going to stay with this application even as it goes back and forth to the client. So that way, if they say, oh, your lease agreement is blurry, I need you to submit a clean one, you can send it back. They can resubmit that lease agreement. All of the other items will already be confirmed. You'll just need to go in and confirm that other document there. And so now what I want to show you is another component that's new to 2023, and that is this ability to identify a family as adopt a family. Now, when under adopt a family, I'm just going to need to grab the email address for a little bit later. If I want to apply a family to be an adoptive family, this is something that happens from the administrator perspective, from the caseworker, from the person that's processing. Now, in order for adopt a family to be eligible in the campaign settings, that has to be flagged to answer yes in order for this option to be available. I'd imagine that not every command in the Central Territory will utilize the adoptive family procedure. But let me explain to you how that walks through. And so if I want to enable someone to be adopt a family, and this can happen at any point of the approval process, I click this box here and it says adopt a family. And so basically what this is saying is going to say, by selecting adopt a family, this application is going to return to the status of return to applicant. This has to happen so that the applicant can get back into their application from the online interface. It gives you, at this point, they will be prompted and given the opportunity to enter needs and wishes for all the family members, not just angels. If you want to trigger this, you'll simply click yes, go ahead and click OK, and now you'll see these items will update. You'll see a box here appear called Adopt a Family. Ignore this donor information. This is from yesterday, but I'll be able to show you. And then up here, it'll say it's been a status of return to applicant, adopt a family. And so now they are going to be able to go in and enter the information. Let me show you how that works. So if I come back to the public website, the public angel tree, we will go ahead and click yes. You start an application. I'll enter in the email address for that applicant. It's going to run a check and see that it is indeed there. I'll enter in my 6-character code. And now it's going to prompt me with telling me I can either start over or I can continue. Now this is the same interface for someone who has started an application but doesn't want to start. It doesn't want to finish their application and come back and finish later. So here they can go in and they'll click continue, and they'll enter in their zip code and their birth date. And then they will be granted access to their application. Now here I want to show you two things. First of which, we have the need and wish that they have been given the opportunity to fill out. But we also have this new question that is going to be required for all Central Territory Corps per THQ, and that is a question regarding Pathway of Hope. And so now every applicant that signs up will have to answer yes or no as to whether or not they would be interested in talking to one of the caseworkers about Pathway of Hope. This verbiage that was here was provided by Territorial Headquarters, and so if you have any desire to alter that, you would just need to direct that to your Divisional Social Services Director to be able to go through and identify this through and move forward. I'll work through the application. It's going to process me through. I can adjust the household members. I don't have any more, so I'll click next. I don't have to adjust my angels. Now I'm going to go through this process. Now, because this item has already been submitted, the signature is still there. Now they can clear their signature and re-sign, but this consent is still applicable from the first time they submitted. So you'll go ahead and process through. You have all of the documents that are there, as well as the confirmation page, and then I'm going to submit my application. So it's going to go through the same process that they are able to go through. I'm going to pause here just for a quick second to see if I can highlight a few of the questions. So I'm going to work in reverse order. One question said, is the Pathway of Hope a question for all applications or just adopt? I'm not sure, Bonnie. The Pathway of Hope question is a default question that is going to be required for all applicants that come in through the Angel Tree application. It's for the clients to fill out an answer. I'd imagine they may or may not have a question, but you would be able to go ahead and answer that. A few other questions. Kendra, is it possible to send it back to the client I believe they're asking about adopt a family, but they only purchase for the children. So this is a different type of adopt a family. So let me pause here for a quick second, and as we walk through kind of the definition of adopt a family. Now, the definition of adopt a family is that they are adopting the family as a whole, meaning that they are going to give the opportunity to purchase needs or wishes for not just qualified angels, but for all other individuals. Now, this is different than someone wanting to do adopt a family, meaning that they just want to adopt all the kids from the same family. That's a different construct as it relates to adopt a family. So if you aren't going to utilize adopt a family in that manner, you would not want to utilize that adopt a family feature, but rather have them adopt from the same family. Go ahead and see if there's any other questions that need. I can also go ahead and look and see if anyone has a question and you've raised your hand. We can go ahead and unmute you there. I'm just going to go through and look. So Beverly, I see that you have a question. And so I'm going to go ahead. Your hand is still raised. I'll unmute you. And so there, Beverly, you are unmuted. Beverly Mason, if you have a question.
No, I accidentally clicked that. I'm sorry.
No apologies. No worries. Go ahead and see if there's any other questions.
We see Rob McFarland has a question, so we're going to go ahead and unmute you, Robin.
Question is about adopt a family. Is there any way in the application process that a client can indicate that they want to be adopted?
So we had a discussion with a few of your divisional social service directors and territorial representatives, and where we landed was that the ability to be identified as an adoptive family is something that would be triggered by the caseworker. Now, you can very easily put into place a business rule in which you contact that individual before you trigger them as adoptive family. But the explanation that we were given was that adoptive family was used for those special use case scenarios in which a family has experienced significant, I would say significant hardship during this year, maybe a fire, really the possibilities are endless, that really just made this an especially hard season. And so that was going to be triggered by caseworkers. So there's not a way that someone would be able to flag themselves as being willing to be adopted. So I would say if you want to confirm willingness, I would just you can use the email, the communication within Angel Tree, or you can just go ahead and contact them directly to see, we would like to identify you as adoptive family. This is what this means. It means that everyone in your household will be eligible potentially to receive a gift. Because we have a donor that would adopt the family as a whole. Are you open to being an adoptive family candidate?
Okay, because we have agencies, businesses, I mean, and a couple of families who want to adopt every single year. So in order for me to do this, then I have to cold call clients to see if they're willing to be adopted.
Well, I think at this point, I mean, I guess it depends on if you have put into place a business rule that says that we need to gain their approval before they're adopted. Now, maybe in a related question, Wendy asked whether or not the client will be able to see the adopter name and info. They will see only the individual's first name. And so when someone has gone through, and I could show you as they go through, as I process through, once it gets back to admin approved with adopt a family, you'll see there'll be an icon that appears in the top. And here it is going to appear and show just the first name and their age and years and gender. That's going to be able to show them what that is. And so they're not getting any specific information. Now they will have first names. Now, if that is something that we need to try to accommodate and find something alternative, I think reach out to your divisional social service directors and we can see if that is an issue. We can go ahead and address that, but they're not able to see last names, date of births, any of the additional information.
Okay. That doesn't really answer my question, but that's okay.
So I guess the question is ultimately in terms of whether or not you're going to, when you say cold calling an application, the question is yes. The concern is that if I put a question in there and say, are you willing to be eligible for adopt a family? That becomes a question that requires further explanation in terms of what that means. And so rather than trying to put multiple sentences that explains what that question is, we can always go in and add a question. That's not the issue. The question is whether or not that being present on the application will suffice the need to apply that. We felt that the adoptive family was something that would happen in consult with a caseworker in direct communication with the applicant.
Okay. I'll just give you an example of what I'm talking about. We have a local car dealership. They want to adopt every year. They want 2 parents and 3 kids. So then what I need to do is I need to go through my applications and find somebody that fits the criteria that they're looking for. Then I need to call that person and say, we have someone who wants to adopt a family of your size. Would you be willing to do that? So, I mean, it's doable. I did it last year, and
Yeah,
I can do it again.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the process. Well, what you have with the adoptive family interface now is the ability to have them enter their information and be able to pass that information off to the donor collectively. If there are specific use cases like that to where they need a family of a certain size, we haven't gone as far as that to be able to work in terms of selecting the adoptive family, but that is currently, that could be a future iteration should that be needed.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem. And I'm sure I don't want to move past the adoptive family because I'm sure it's new and there's a few more questions that are coming in.
Just to speak into one detail about Robin's request, the family does receive an automatic notification from the system notifying that they've been selected as an adoptive family and that the application has been returned to them so they can kind of enter in those fields. If you wanted to go above that and contact them directly, that's certainly doable, but the system is making an attempt to reach out to them to let them know they've been selected.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and I think this might be some use for further conversations with maybe perhaps your divisional social service teams in terms of ways you can do. For instance, Deb Weaver, perhaps utilizing a school social worker to suggest families that could be involved. I think there's lots of use cases in terms of how you can determine the way in which a pathway of hope, not pathway of hope, forgive me, the adoptive family client is identified. But this is what I would say is we want to leave it as intentionally as ambiguous as possible in the sense that individual locations can apply this in the manner that best fits their scenario. The more specific we set with criteria and requirements, perhaps an approval process, that ends up in part restricting another unit that maybe wouldn't follow that same business process as it relates to adoptive family. Again, this adoptive family procedure is independent and is not required. It is configured in your campaign settings. So what I want to show you here is what happens when something has been submitted. So as I go into this application here, it's been supervisor approved. The last thing I want to go through here on the application itself is these seasonal programs. These are questions that communicate directly with SIMS. I believe one of the question is that are they using TSAMM in addition to SIMS? So SIMS is your HMIS system for the Central Territory. So Angel Tree is not replacing that, but they are services that are mapped directly to SIMS. And so if you utilize these features, Christmas baskets, meals, clothing, the eligibility for these seasonal programs are configured from the campaign. And so I'll refer you to that webinar on Tuesday if you need additional questions. But as someone processing the application, you will want to explain exactly, if I mark someone as Christmas meals, what does that mean? Now, without going to all of the export process, what happens is when this family receives this check mark of receiving a Christmas meal, the system is grabbing the individual, the household ID, the client ID, and it's putting all of this into a spreadsheet that then gets uploaded into your SIMS interface so that it doesn't require double entry. And so what you don't, so this is where it is important to make sure those matches are accurate as much as possible. I know sometimes in the busyness of the Christmas season, sometimes we will just simply click all of them as new clients because it just goes faster. Now, hopefully the speed of that will not be an issue. And so we really want to have that time of having data accuracy, because that information is going to be uploaded to SIMS for the purposes of data upload and data accuracy. And so these sections need to be checked if this applicant is going to be receiving these services. So if you do a Christmas basket program in conjunction with your Angel Tree program, you want to go ahead and click these options here. I will say, and just as one little bit of a campaign component setting configuration, is if you are missing a component from SIMS that's not matching up with these service IDs, you just go ahead and reach out to your divisional social service director, and we'll look at the possibility of getting additional fields available, because the last thing we want is for you to having to do double work. We don't want you to have to swivel chair. We don't want you to have to go back and forth between interfaces to be able to update information. We can go ahead and do that. Now, what I want to do here is show you the printing of angel records, of angel tags, as well as the two ways you can print out forgotten angels. Now, if I want to print angel tags, I'm going to come onto this page. Now, this is our test data, so you're going to see some mixture here, but any individual angel that is in a status of admin approved is eligible to have their angel tag printed. So I can simply come down here, I can select all the ones I need, or I'm sure early on, if you're just going to be selecting all that are available, I'll just click this button at the very top corner, and I'll come down here to the bottom, and I'll print my angel tags. It'll give you a list of all of the ones you're including. The barcodes are going to be used for the sorting and distribution dashboard. I'll talk about that in 2 seconds, or in just a little bit. But when I'm done, I print these angel tags, and it's going to generate all of the information needed based on the configured campaign settings. So when you're first entering in the information, all of the fields that were entered, you will select in the campaign whether or not the first name is included or not, their age, and then the things that they've asked, and you simply print with the angel tags that you either custom made or that you had purchased from the trade department. Now, if you need to print forgotten angels, you can do this in one of 2 ways. And really, it's 2 different approaches. The first of which is to print forgotten angels based directly on applications that you received. To do that, it's exactly the same interface. I'll select all that applied, but instead of printing angel tags, I'm going to print forgotten angels. Now, when I print forgotten angels, it's going to print all of the same information. It's going to print their, it'll have their name, it'll have their age, their desires, but the difference is rather than having their angel code here to signify that it is directly tied to that angel, it's just going to say FA. Now that obviously stands for forgotten angel. These are ones that can be used to bolster your options, because the other way to print forgotten angels is here underneath the angels tab down to forgotten angels. These forgotten angels will still utilize the template that you have designated, but rather than putting any information, it's going to be largely just basic information. This is for a forgotten angel. Your gifts will be given to a child who is not adopted, right? It is, and depending on your strategy and how you want to utilize this, you can go ahead and print this, and it gives you different options based on the ages that you select. So 2 to 4 versus 15 to 16, as well as the option for senior angels, should your campaign utilize those. So that's how you print out your angel tags. When it comes time to allocate angels, you can do that in a couple ways. I can go in and I can allocate angels from here. I can select the angels that I want to allocate and simply click Update Angel Allocation. When I click this, then I'm going to choose which of my allocation places do I want to assign them to, including do I want to remove them from any allocation. This here is going to give me the option to be able to allocate that angel to a specific location. Now, this is a bit more of a campaign settings, but it's going to be all in the same location, and that is this angel allocation standpoint interface, to where you're going to be able to do both sponsored angels as well as your online angel interface. Now, there's a few components that interface with this, but in order to allocate angels, you'll click on this green arrow over here. When I click on this green arrow over here, it's going to look at how many are requested, how many were allocated or adopted. And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to see, how do I want to sort the angels that I'm allocated? Maybe this donor specifically said, I want to get angels as young as possible, right? So I want to be able to say age ascending, at which point it's going to give me all angels, and it's going to order it based on their age. So it's going to start with the youngest and work your way up, or vice versa, age descending. You can do it by angel number. This allows you to group out angels based on family code. You can see when you look at an angel code, the numbers, when they overlap, will correlate to one family. So BC 101 is one family, and they have 4 children because they have A, B, C, and D. And to allocate those 4 angels, I can simply, if I want to add all of them over, I just click add to allocation, or I can select, just click and drag all the ones that I want to include. They turn green, and then I just click add to allocation, and now they've been taken and they've been applied to this angel allocation over here, and now they become eligible. So now when someone goes into their angel, this location shows the ability to do online adoption, and so I can go on and I can go on and handle that. And so you're gonna go on, you'll confirm that you're not a robot. You come, oh, forgive me, I jumped ahead too quickly. And so once I come in, they're going to be able to come in and adopt. They'll choose, do they want only male, only female, or do they want, or if it doesn't matter, as well as what is their age. Now, this age brackets are going to be based on what is available. And so if you have based on here, there are no angels ages 5 to 7, which is why that age bracket is missing. And so I'll go here and I'll click, I want to continue, at which point it's going to bring me over and show me all the eligible angels for that fit that criteria, a female and at that age range. If you want to check the status of the angels that have been assigned to a location, you can click here on this adoption report. And this will be able to go on and see all of the angels that have been allocated here, as well as what their adoption is. So if they've adopted an angel through the online interface, they have the opportunity to enter in their donor information. And so you can see here that this angel was adopted, but these 3 weren't. And so if you have a location that has a sponsored angel tree, this is where you would be able to go in and keep them updated, at least in terms of angels that haven't been adopted yet through the online interface. If they are also using printed angels, that's going to be a little bit harder. They'll need to keep track of that as it walks out through their door as it's adopted there through the interface. All right, so I'm going to pause here as it relates to angel allocations and angel records and see if there's any questions just as we go ahead and hop in. So I'll quickly go through. Eduardo, do you see any hands raised? Yep, I think there's a question here from Emily. Forgive me if I pronounced your name wrong, Emily Bastine. And so, Emily, you're
I've unmuted her. She should be able to speak now.
Okay.
Hi, I have found some printed angels here in our offices, but I need more of those. Is there a way for you to, oh wait, it's written, I think, angel tag cardstock from your trade department?
Yeah, I did respond to your question with the link. I also shared that question with everyone in case it was helpful. So you can order the angel tag cardstock from your trade department at THQ.
Okay.
We have a link specifically for the Southern Territories Trade Department for the the compatible angel tag cardstock. I'm not sure if your trade in your territory would have the exact same like product or ID number, but perhaps they can use the same description to pull over and provide you with what you need.
Okay, thank you. I'm in
Yeah, you're welcome.
Indiana, so I will definitely check with my social services director.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm looking to see if there's any other questions as it relates to angel adoption. I'll pause here for a quick second, see if there's, Eduardo, just let me know if you see any more hands raised.
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to highlight here is something that was new for the 2022 season, but maybe came out a little bit later than you were able to fully implement, and that is the sorting and distribution dashboard. This is the way I would describe this process. This is the ability, like when you order from Domino's Pizza, that when you place an order through their app, you see when your pizza has been received, when it's in the oven, when it's being quality control checked, when it's been put in the car, when they're in your neighborhood, and you can see this growing component to be able to see where is this angel in the process? Where is this angel as I work my way through? Have they even been returned? Have they been returned, but they've been returned with simply one pair of shorts in the bottom of the bag, so we're gonna need to add additional gifts? And this is done through the distribution management toolkit. And so this is going to utilize two components, one of which is your what I would say gift tracking. This is everything that's going to happen before your angel tree season. And then you have distribution tracking, which is really the family. And I'll talk about each one of these periodically. When I come in, this is a public access. They don't have access to any specific information that's any more than they would see printed on an angel tag. But when they come in here, there's a QR code that you can simply put on the wall. They can share it amongst themselves. But when they come in, they're going to log in. They're going to be at your specific distribution site. You'll put in your first, your last name. I ideally upload a photo, and I'll show you where that's used later. And here you say, what is it that I'm going to be doing? Am I doing something as a part of gift tracking that's happening before distribution day, or something that happens for families as a whole? So I'll click gift tracking, at which point this is designed, it's going to seem very basic, but the thought being that this is something that's on a phone. It's something that's on a tablet. And we have, through our FAQs, some suggestions. And now I can either type in an angel code. So I'm going to type in BC105A. Or if I have a Bluetooth scanner that you can get for under $30 from Amazon, you can just scan the code that comes in on that angel. And when I go ahead and search that, it's going to bring up this information. So I can see that this is Jimmy, he's 7 years old. I can say what are the things that he asked for, as well as what is, if he did have a specific allocation, was this allocated to a specific sponsored allocation location, what their appointment is. Then there's a few other things that you can do here. The first thing, you can go ahead and trigger that they have received an oversized gift. So I can go ahead and click that, and I can say that Jimmy got a bike. And once I save that, it's going to update that they've received an oversized gift. It's going to notify you, because as in most angel tree operations, this becomes utilized other locations. And then you have the ability to put in notes as it relates to this. Any additional information needs close. And I can go ahead and I can put this information and be able to process through this. And then when I'm done, I'm going to mark it as what is the standard location. So it's been marked as received at warehouse, and it brings me right back. So this is as you go through, and then if I type in that same code one more time, so 105A, I can go in, and now this person's already in a status, and then someone else might check to see, does it have the right number of gifts or not? Now, this process here is completely optional. So much of this Angel Tree website is designed to be as broad and as robust as possible. Now, Roxanne made a comment that has a small core of only doing 200 families, which, Roxanne, that's not too small. 200 families can be north of 700, 800 kids. as needed. And so you may not utilize this full component. You might not utilize the sorting distribution dashboard at all. But here it allows you to open up and allows you to process these things through. So this is the sorting, the nature of the sorting dashboard. Now I can come over to my sorting dashboard on my interface and be able to see all the components that have been checked in. I can see who has been checked in. This is where I can see who it was that performed that action, that there's a note, that there's an oversized, this one, Jimmy, for this one has an oversized gift. And I can see that in terms of where we are. Because within this page as well, I can come up here to statistics to be able to see, okay, I've got 27 gifts that haven't been returned. One of them has been received and one is at the warehouse. Now, these are all the potential options that you have to be able to let you know. Now, if you are a larger operation that maybe has multiple distribution sites, you also have this component, which is really helpful, to where it says, hey, this has been returned, but it's been returned to the wrong location. And so you can see that the Bay City core, let's say you had 10 here, you would know that there's 10 bags that have been received, but they've been received at the wrong location. And you can go in and look at that location and see where it was that they would have gone through and accessed this. And so that is the sorting side. So I'll just pause for a quick second to see if there's any questions on the sorting dashboard before I jump into the distribution side. I see that Eric asked a question as relates how they include seasonal service in the distribution process. I thought we went over that, but I'll go back and hit that one more time. Their seasonal services are tied within their applicant records. And I would go into the individual, and this is when I'm going to check these seasonal programs, these seasonal services. This is where those are applied. Seasonal services are not applied as it relates to the sorting and distribution dashboard and the sorting distribution interface. That is not utilized in that component. And so that is where that comes from. Yep. Eduardo, do you see any hands raised? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I see that I don't see any hand raised either. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And so here I want to show you the distribution side of this as well. So I'm going to use the same name. I'm going to use my name. I'm not going to upload my photo right now, but I'm going to go ahead and put in my distribution dashboard. It's going to ask me, hey, is this you? If it is, I can click yes. If not, I can alter it. So that's me. And so now I'm on the distribution side, the family tracking. And so there are multiple options. This campaign has been configured to show multiple options to maybe for the larger operation that has more individuals. But here, when I'm searching by son of family, that it gives me the information. But here, what I'm seeing is anything that's red or highlighted should be hey, it's not in the status we think it's going to be. And so what this is saying is that we think it should be in the status of ready for distribution. That is when you signal that a gift is indeed ready for distribution. It doesn't need anything, it's ready to go. Or you can see here, like this gift hasn't even been checked in. And so what you're able to do with Family Ready is I'm able to go in and add in a component. So this distribution dashboard component simply is the tracking of a family on distribution day. So when someone shows up with their application, they're going to have a barcode on that application, or you can just manually type in that 4 or 5 character, in this case it was BC 105, to check them in. There are certain parameters you can give as it relates to appointment time, in which this will appear red if they appear more than 30 minutes before their appointment time, things along those lines. But I'm going to check them in, and then they're ready to go. Now, if I jump over here to the distribution dashboard, now I'm able to see which families have been checked in. And not only that, I'm going to see if it's been oversized. I'm able to see how long they've been waiting. So every 30 seconds, this is going to be updated. So here we can see that this individual has been waiting for 4.5 hours. That's not good. If we see that, oh, we're worried because they've been checked in and waiting. But here you can start to see, think of it as the little screen at Chick-fil-A that tells you if your gift's in process or if it's ready to go out. But this is going to update every 30 seconds and be able to see here now that this individual that's been checked in, this gift, this family has been waiting there for a short period of time. You have the same statistics features. So this is for those individuals that have multiple distribution sites, maybe happening on the same day. You can go ahead and utilize this. Now, the only thing, one of the things that I really hope that every operation, no matter how big or small, they can utilize distribution dashboard for the purposes of distributing gifts. You can use distribution dashboard with only one checkpoint, and that is marking someone as distributed. So if I go back into this dashboard, I'm just going to work this individual through the gift, and I'm actually going to jump ahead. I can go ahead and mark it. So if I have someone sitting at the door with that $25, $30 barcode scanner, they can scan them as they walk out the door and mark them as distributed. So this does two things. One, it keeps you from having to go back into your system and update the family to be distributed. I know that that's a pain point, but at this point, up until last year, this was the only way for us to be able to signal that they were distributed. And you need to distribute them because that is another trigger in the SIMS database, that when Angel gets distributed, it's going to trigger another service that allows it to, again, that data accuracy for SIMS. And so it's going to mark it as distributed, but also it's going to give you a real-time look into how many people have come in and how many people are still waiting to arrive. So some of you may know, I know some of the people on this call having grown up in the Central Territory, but my wife and I were officers for 7 years. And I remember every single year being tasked with the job of walking through the warehouse with a sheet of paper, writing down all the gifts that were remaining, the families that hadn't shown up to pick up, because they were going to take that list and go back and update it. And not to mention the fact that you had a stack of 200 pieces of paper, because that's how you knew that they arrived. It was cumbersome. It was filled with human error. And it was something that, in full transparency, I didn't necessarily enjoy doing, but I love my wife, so I did it anyways. And I would walk through. So by marking someone as distributed, like this, I mark it as distributed, it actually gives them the option, the opportunity to sign and confirm. That's the other pain point. Sometimes people get in their car and they're missing a bag, or they come back, and unfortunately, I have been on the receiving end of someone trying to, for lack of a better term, buck the system. They receive their bags, but they'll say they never showed up. They'll say, we don't know what you're talking about. And they're just doing this to try to get extra things. Unfortunately, we had a saying, you have to help the greedy to get to the needy. And so this is a way here to give yourself some coverage that you can require a signature when they fill. That can be done on their phone, just with their finger on a tablet as they're exiting. I can apply that signature, and then I'm going to confirm that distribution. And now this family, if I come back over here to my applicant records, that was Leva Frank. She has been updated to be distributed. And if I go into her application, I can go down here to distribution confirmation, and I see that she signed. Here's her signature. This is when it happened. It really is a way for us to be able to give yourself some coverage for people, unfortunately, that might try to abuse the system in an unhealthy, unfortunate way. And so that is the Angel Tree system, from being able to walk someone through the application process, moving on. There's a few things that we didn't go into too much because this is something that's not new, and that is doing application intake, what we would say the traditional way of an applicant coming in, entering in my new applicant, choosing my family applicant intake, walking through this. So this is all the exact same, and we have existing webinars and existing training material that walk you through that process. But what we want to do here with the remaining time that we have is to be able to open it up to questions. Now, these can be questions based on things that we have covered today. These could be questions based on your experience with Angel Tree that you just want to be able to get any additional information on. Additionally, we're going to go ahead and unmute Eric Fenn from Territorial Headquarters. We have been working closely with Eric to get data squared away data updated. And so I'll unmute Eric so that he can, oh, that's not Eric, forgive me. I'll unmute Eric so that he can share any additional information that he needs. But yeah, we look forward to working with you. Again, refer to that chat message to see additional helps for our TSAMM library of webinars and videos for Angel Tree. Go ahead and contact TSAMM support at dataparadigm.com with any questions you may have. But we're really excited to working with the Central Territory. As I share with you, I grew up in the Central Territory. I still attend the Salvation Army here in Dallas, Texas. It's 107 today. I miss my home in Streamwood with its high of, I'm sure, 82 today or something along those lines. So we're gonna just have a moment here for Eric to share, as well as people to ask any questions that they may have. Eric, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sure. I think it'll be good for everybody to get to that library and check out the application process. If you want to just show them where, well, they can get to that through the link that was on this. But one key thing is when you're doing that distribution, it's great that they can do that in that checkout, but we want to make sure that in the actual applicant information, you check the seasonal services that they're receiving during that time before they actually get changed to distributed. So if you go into an applicant right now and you are going through that process, I guess my question for you, Jeff, is the assumption is people are coming in, they're going to be receiving the toys, and then caseworkers need to actually come into this applicant information and make sure that they're checking whatever services those clients are receiving when they're coming in on top of the toys. And then in that distribution process, they can click the button on the way out, and that client will receive the toys as well as the services that are selected under the seasonal program for their applicant information.
Correct. Yeah, so you want to make sure you'll go through. Now, so if you have an operation that's not going to know if they receive a Christmas meal until they actually show up, you'll want to adjust the manner in which some of your business rules, where you may need to have someone in this interface as they come ahead and check in to be able to check them in for Christmas meals. We can always look at being able to expand some of those components. If you have I worked with an officer in the South named Ethan Frizzell, and he talked about how 1 year, instead of doing a distribution where people just walked up and got gifts, he spent an entire week and did a dinner with Santa, essentially, to where he would invite the families to come in. He worked it all out, but there was a Christmas meal associated with every single family that received gifts. And so if you have some operation like that, you'll want to go ahead and adjust your business processing to be able to process through and do that. But yes, you are correct that you will want to make sure that these are checked ahead of time, and then that gets triggered when they get distributed.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is this year, like we did last year, we want all the cores that want to participate in Angel Tree to reach out to the Divisional Social Services Secretary and their team so that you can tell them your interest in participating. Each of the divisions are going to be receiving information from DPI that contains a spreadsheet where they're going to put in who's participating this year, and then they're going to work with DPI to make sure that all of you get activated and you can start utilizing Angel Tree. So they're going to be helping to coordinate who's participating this year and hopefully getting some discounts on pricing based on how many participate in their division.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a couple questions here that came up. I can address here. Dee asked a question about how to pull a report to see how many families were served and how many children were served. So families is going to be based on applicants. So if you need to be able just to simply pull up an applicant record, you can simply go into your applicant record here. And if you want to clarify only those that were distributed, distributed is really like this in terms of they were indeed served. This is another reason why you want to make sure that you update. I've seen some campaigns that never went in and updated their applicants to be distributed, and so it's going to be incomplete information. But you can just use this filter setting here, and if I go down here to, and I just mark them as, what is my status? Marked as distributed, I click refresh. And so now this is going to give me a row as well as the angels that are a part of that to be able to see how many children were served. So I can export this information to be able to go through and jump in and get this information ready to go. You also have the ability from your report section. If I come here to applicants, one thing that we have in Angel Tree is the ability to create custom reports. They're not one in an interactive nature in the way that you can filter and do those components, change those fields. But if I come into applicants, I can create a new report here. I'm going to have all of this information available. So I can uncheck all of them and just say I want the first name and last name, or just the first name and the family number. I can go through and say, what's my family size, the number of angels. And if I go ahead and generate this report, it's going to go ahead and populate an Excel spreadsheet that's able to be utilized. And let me see if I can pull that over here. Yep. And so this is essentially what comes out, and it's going to give me the number of families, right? There's, if I take out the header, there's going to be 10 families, and then I can do a simple total here where I can see the sum here is 44. So right off the bat, I can see I've got 10 families with 44 angels in this given intake location, right? At this point, it is all of them, but I can be specific if you want to drill down into the specifics of one distribution site over another.
Hey, Jeff, I have another question for you.
Yeah, of course.
Can you show in the manual applicant entry process where the pathway of hope question is, as opposed to the
that'll be at the bottom. That was Eric. I apologize. I can show you where that will be. Where it will be, I can't show you where it is right now because that was one thing that did not happen. It did not get deployed correctly. It will be in place within the hour. And so if I go into the application process, it's going to be at the bottom of the applicant information. So if I jump in, this is what that interface looks like from a standard. It'll be at the bottom question here where they will select yes or no. And it will be a required data point that is required should someone want to be able to proceed forward.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, no problem. All right.
We do have a question from Genesis in the questions pane. She asks, is there a way to, I believe you say contact the sponsor to the family, but maybe you're asking about connecting the sponsor to the family. If that's the correct question, at the moment we don't have a way to connect the sponsor and the family, but there's certain reports you can pull. We do have a donor report where you can pull out their first name, last name, maybe email address, and you can always apply that to the donor, maybe via email.
Mm-hmm. So if I come under
Genesis, if we didn't understand that question entirely, feel free to raise your hand and we'd be happy to answer that correctly.
So here, if you want to pull a donor report, I can come in here and it'll tell me the first name, last name, the address if they provided it, as well as the email that they utilized. The interface within Angel Tree, you would not contact them within the Angel Tree interface. But this is where you would gather their information. And so if you want to contact an individual directly, I can come under Angel Records. I can come here. Over here, you can see the donor. So if, let's say Lee adopted Howie and we want to contact them, we can simply click, come over here on Lee. It'll bring us to that page and be able to see what his email address is for the purposes of contacting that donor. For that individual. If you're referring to a sponsor for the angel allocation, that information is held here under angel allocations and being able to see the specifics of this sponsored location, where you can see the contact name information and all the necessary information. Did that answer your question, Genesis? I'm not sure if it did or not. I hope that walks you through that process. So we're going to keep answering questions. Let me see if there's a few more questions down there. Is there a way to require, is this the required way for clients to request Christmas assistance? And are the dates that it opens and closes the same across the territory? Lynette, all of this, and we'll dabble a little bit into your campaign configurations. Again, this went over on Tuesday, but all of that information that you filled out was based on within your campaign configuration. So each location has the ability to determine whether or not they allow online applications. For each intake site, they can set their online application to open or close. So you control when that goes, when those applications are live to your public. Some locations start as early as August 1st for registration, and we've seen some start as late as September 15th. And so it's really up to you and your business rules around when you want to start that. If any mandate for THQ that THQ may set would be communicated from your divisional social service directors, but I don't believe that is the case. I'll let Eric can always step in and answer that if there is a question. A few more questions that came in through the question there. Remember, you can also raise your hand if you want to ask your question with not in writing, but just go ahead and unmute. We can bring you in. Is there anything in the application that specifies the applicant is an adult and prevents only children from being entered? And so let me see if I understand your question correctly. Cynthia, if it's better for me to unmute, I'm happy to do so. Just go ahead and raise your hand if it's easier, if I'm not understanding your question correctly. But one thing that is required for all individuals is a date of birth. And so when they go in your campaign settings under general, you have the opportunity to choose whether or not you allow an applicant with no angels. Well, the situation we found is that there are some locations that will use the angel tree registration for only a food basket. So now if I'm only doing food baskets, I'm not required to have a child that fits the parameters of angel tree in order to apply. And so I can go ahead and simply click yes to allowing applicants with no angels. At this point, it will allow you to bypass the angel question altogether. Now, but the system will know the date of birth of every person who is applying, whether they be the applicant, a household member, or an angel. And so they'll be able to know, and that is driven by your settings, whether or not someone is deemed an angel or if they are deemed what we say a non-angel household member. And then lastly here, and Cynthia, if I didn't answer your question correctly, please, by all means, either ask a clarifying one or just go ahead and raise your hand and we're happy to unmute you. And then the last one here, question here is from Deb. It says, so if families select yes to the Pathway of Hope question, we will be able to pull and print a report for that. Yes. And so if someone is an adoptive family component, that is held here within the applicant records. And so at this point, I will simply go ahead and filter based on adoptive family, yes or no. If I click yes, this will give me all of the families and adoptive families. So this is also helpful here if you have expanded your adoptive family. Let's say you said this year we're going to take 20 adoptive families. So there's two things. One of which it allows you to come in here and say, like I think we had the situation we had before where someone says, I want to adopt a family that has 2 kids or 3 kids or 1 kid. You can come in here and provide as much additional information. You can sort based on this category. Anything that's blue here is clickable. I can sort it in an ascending or descending order to be able to allocate the specific angel. Also, I think I also want to make sure we are on the same page. You can also remove the adoptive family application. Let's say maybe you didn't get enough donors and simply you're not going to be able to fulfill all the adoptive family components, or you have certain criteria that after initially applying the adoptive family option, they've been removed. You simply go back into the interface, click the adoptive family and change it back to no. At which point, once I do that, it returns them back to what we would say is a standard application for them to be processed. All right, we have a question from Rebecca Simmons, Major Simmons. So I'll go ahead and unmute you. All right, so Rebecca, you are unmuted. So if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
This may be more of a question for Eduardo, I don't know, but we noticed that when the information was transferred from TSAMM into Service Point, that it created another address field. And often it was a repeated address field from one that was already in there. Is that still going to take place?
So actually, I'll take this question. So when the way that the process works with WellSky is we provide the data, we'll provide an address, we provide the names, the services they provided. That gets put in a CSV file, which is basically an Excel, a really big Excel file, and that gets given to WellSky. Now, the manner in which WellSky handles that data is actually on WellSky's side. And so if there was a situation in which an address was duplicated and added incorrectly, my understanding is that addresses shouldn't be being, especially for last year, those addresses shouldn't be being applied to a record. And so that would be a question that I think you should reach out to your divisional social service director, and then ultimately that would be a conversation between Eric, Fenn, and WellSky.
Yeah, WellSky should not be importing any address into an existing client in SIMS. The only time that you might see a duplicate address is if you have a new client that was added in with the same name. So it's possible that a merge was done and then that information was combined, but we'd have to see the situation that was popping up, some examples, and see if we can get that fixed.
All right, I'm gonna see, Eduardo, do you see any more hands raised? I'm kind of scrolling through just to see if I see any.
Yes, we have one from Cynthia. I'll go ahead and unmute you, Cynthia, so you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. So I'm returning to my previous question in the chat. My question is on the application. Does it specify that that first person is the adult so that I don't end up with just a household of children and no adult listed?
Oh, so it doesn't, I'll need to double check this from a coding standpoint to see if it does look to ensure that the applicant is over.
It does.
I believe it's the case. That sound right, Eduardo?
Yeah, it does. If the date of birth is, I think younger than like 13 or 14. It could also even be looking at some of the campaign details. But there is a specific cutoff where if it's the date of birth entered is too low, it says that like you need to have an adult complete this application for you. It'll prevent them from moving forward at that point.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
you're welcome.
I'm sorry I misunderstood your question. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you raised your hand to get that clarification. All right, we're coming up to the end of our time together. Eduardo and I will happily hang on here for the next 10 minutes or so to see if there's more questions that come through. I believe some of them have come through.
Yeah, I see a question we have from Amy, Jeff. I'm not sure if you want to take a look at that. If not, I can answer that as well.
Yeah, so Amy, the question she asked, is there a way to keep the recipients of food only from automatically having gifts and toys noted as a received service? So the way that the system is looking for applying the seasonal services of a food only is it's looking to see if they had any angels. And so when someone goes through the system, they can enter in. There's nothing requiring them that just because they have a child in the ages that's an angel means that they have to be in the angel tree program. Now, it's a very low use case scenario where maybe their operation allows for angels up to the age of 15, but there's another agency in town that does teenagers, and so they've elected to sign up their 13-year-old with this other agency and only sign up their 5 and 7-year-olds through Angel Tree. So what the system allows you to do is in the section under household members, you can enter any individual in that section. Now, when the export happens, when someone gets marked as distributed, if they have an angel in the angel category, or if they have a child in the angel category, it's going to mark them as receiving gifts because we haven't instituted a premise to where you can trigger them as a food only. What we would suggest in those cases is when you are approving someone to receive a food basket and they are only receiving a food basket, all of their children, all of their household members should be put into household members non-angels. That's why in some ways, that's why we utilize that terminology, because an angel is a specific definition of a child receiving a gift. And if they're only getting food, those angels wouldn't be there. And so if you want to keep that from happening, the system will look and it will only apply gifts if they have a child who is an approved angel.
So that means during the intake process, they're not going to add the children into the angel section. They would
Correct.
add them to the household members.
And this is where you potentially, from the administrative perspective, you can do one of two things. You can do it for them. You can go into the interface and remove that angel and move them over to be a non-household member, or you can mark it as return to applicant. Return the applicant to them with the instructions that says you are not eligible for Angel Tree to receive gifts, but you are food basket only. You get to really choose that terminology, and you would explain to them, please enter all of your household members, families into what is step 2, household members, regardless of the age. So those are the two ways in which you would be able to adjust that, either you doing it for them or sending the application back to them for them to do themselves. Forgive me, that did tag one thing in my mind that was also new, and it's a minor thing, but it may be helpful for you who deal with a lot of applications. We have added this, what's called first submitted date, because we know applications will go back and forth between the application, but you want to register people, give priority to the people that based on when they first submitted their application. So now I can go ahead, I can sort, I can click on this, that becomes sortable, and now I'm looking at all of the applications as early as they came in to be able to be processed. And so that is that can operation there for them to be able to process through, in case that's a useful situation for your command. We have about 5 minutes left if there's any additional questions. If not, just a quick thank you from me and from DPI. Angel Tree is a special opportunity, and we are honored and fortunate that you guys allow us to partner with you to be able to serve this community through the TSAMM Angel Tree program. They have distributed over 1 million angels in its existence. And so we are very honored to be a part of you serving your communities. And so we look forward to the continued partnership. And as always, if we can provide any additional support, please do not hesitate to reach out to Eduardo or myself through tsamsupport@dataparadigm.com. But thank you guys very much for coming to the webinar. It's been great. This recording will be available by Monday. For you to reference or share as needed. We'll hang out for a few more minutes just in case there are any questions that linger, but we're happy to come up.
So we have another question from Eric asking about if we have any functionality to help catch duplicate entries. So you can go probably take that one, Jeff, if you like.
Yeah, so there is a coming development for the 2023 season of a duplicate angel report. That is still in development, but that will be coming up. And that will be simple. And we will send out a recording when that goes live, so that becomes available to you to be able to search for those duplicate entries. But we believe that with this one-time password of coming in, that duplicate issue is going to be significantly limited this year with that adjustment to the intake process. So Amy, that's the same question about duplicate applications. Right now, the only way for someone to do a duplicate application is that they have utilized different emails, which I know is possible, but there will be an interface that's going to look at the various components of the first name, last name, and birth date. And what we're looking for in this is actually going to be not just duplicate applications, but those situations in which you have two family members or somebody else who has mutually agreed to put someone else's children on their list and then just kind of share them among themselves. So it'll be able to catch that and find those people who are trying to abuse the system and get extra gifts. All right, it doesn't appear to be that there's any additional questions, so we're going to go ahead and end this webinar. Again, thank you guys very much. We wish you the best on this upcoming Christmas season, and we look forward to seeing all the good that you guys do in your communities. Thank you, and have a blessed rest of your week.